Mount Rushmore. It's a tourist attraction found in Keystone, South Dakota. Matter of fact, it's the only thing worth noting related to both Dakotas. North and South Dakota are so whack that the coolest Dakota is the Dakota verse with Static Shock and Icon, and that ain't even real. Sorry, North and South Dakota. Sucks to suck, but it's the truth. But back to Mount Rushmore. It's best known for being a stone carving with 4 heads on it, 3 of which are legendary slave owners who also are located on your inflated US dollar. But do you know what's dope about the English language? A single word can have multiple meanings, and that's often dictated by the region in which it's used. What I'm referring to is called culture. You should know what that is. If you're truly bad and bougie, you would know that the Migos dropped 3 albums with the same name. Mount Rushmore may be a US monument, but it's also slang for someone's favorites. If you're not American, an example of it being used in a sentence would be asking a friend something along the lines of, "Hey, what's your Mount Rushmore of rappers?" Or, "Hey, what's your Mount Rushmore of adult actresses?" My Mount Rushmore of blue people would include Papa Smurf, Beast from the X-Men, the Tick, I'm Blue Dabble Dee Dabble Die, and the Blue Beetle. Now, I know what you're thinking. The current Blue Beetle is technically Mexican, so if we're not allowing Blue Beetle, I'll swap him out for Rod Wave to round out my top 5, because Rod Wave may be black, but he's always blue if you catch my drift. You know what wouldn't make my Mount Rushmore blue people? James Cameron's Avatar. I'm only able to make this statement after completing this damn near 3-hour snooze fest. Recently, its sequel, The Way of the Water, dropped, and I decided to revisit the original film because I don't remember much about it. I just remember I wasn't a big fan. At the time of this recording, it's been 13 years since the release of the original Avatar back in 2009. Do you know how much stuff has happened in the last 13 years? You got smartphones corrupting the minds of the youth, we stopped Coney, and former US President George Bush had a shoe thrown at him during a press conference. Well, technically that shoe being thrown at Bush happened in 2008, so I'm off by 1 year. Honestly, I just need an excuse to remind everyone that the president had a shoe thrown at him because it will forever be funny to me.
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
And man, that guy in that last clip sure has changed a lot in the last 13 years too, huh? James Cameron's Avatar. I have no clue how this film earned a sequel and already has a 3rd film greenlit. The only conclusion I can come to is his investors are suffering from something called sunken cost fallacy. If you're unfamiliar with this term, according to Google, sunken cost fallacy is the phenomenon whereby a person is reluctant to abandon a strategy or a course of action because they are invested heavily in it, even when it's clear the abandonment would be much more beneficial. If you're not following because a movie is too large scale for you to understand, allow me to dial it back. A smaller scale example of sunken cost fallacy would be your ex. You knew they was crazy, you saw the red flags, and when you found your name on a sticky note in the freezer because they tried to put a cold spell on you, you should have left. But no, they were so attractive that you was just willing to deal with all that crazy. And look at you now, traumatized and watching pointless videos about movies that are just as old as your little sister.
Got him! Got him!
Seriously, this movie sucks. It's a reason I'm getting off so many jokes. Also, major spoilers ahead if you haven't seen this movie, although you've had 13 years to do it, so I don't know what to tell you. What I can tell you is I don't have much positive to say, and I don't like ragging on stuff for the sake of ragging on stuff, so let's start ragging on stuff. James Cameron's Avatar caught a lot of flack from the Native American community, and rightfully so. But honestly, I don't need to take that route to tear this movie a new one. I'm gonna show you how skilled I am in my job by strictly dissecting this movie from an entertainment standpoint. Avatar is long, boring, and unnecessary. The tomfoolery starts right at the top of the film. We find our protagonist, Jake Sully, living in the city alone, paralyzed, and he's down on his luck. He gets his tail whooped outside of a bar by some local goons, and he's left lying on the ground dead like Yamcha. That's when 2 strange, mysterious men pull up on Jake to tell him that his brother is dead. Jake follows the men to the morgue where he confirms the body, and then the 2 men proceed to be on some Godfather type stuff and make Jake an offer that he can't refuse. They say something along the lines of, "Your brother with the PhD was working on some important scientific research that could better mankind. We know that you're a paralyzed former jarhead, but you share similar DNA to your brother, which makes you qualified for this scientific job, which, by the way, your brother had a PhD in." From there, he's given his own avatar designed to look like the native people of Pandora known as Na'vi. His mission? Infiltrate the Na'vi tribe and gain their trust so that they can cut a deal with them that allows them to extract all of their natural resources. See, the Na'vi's home is smack in the middle of one of the largest sums of the resources the humans need. The name of that resource slips my mind. Maybe my editor can throw it on the screen because I'm too lazy to Google it, but for the sake of keeping this video lighthearted, we'll call it vibranium. Strike number 2. The first Na'vi Jake encounters is a woman by the name of Natiri. They do this whole dance tries to drum up some fake tension, but because this movie's writing is trash, it's easy to see where it goes. She gives him her trust eventually, and something else later in the film if you catch my drift.
Why are you like this?
But yeah, he eventually earns her trust. She introduces him to the gang. He's feeding information to the colonizers, blah, 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 blah. The problem with this scene is, off rip, she recognizes he's what her tribe refers to as a dreamwalker, or a fake Na'vi for you slow folks. She recognizes he's a danger to her people, and she shouldn't bring him back to the tribe, but she's somehow persuaded by Jake. And why is that? She said it's because he had a lot of heart. What? You threw the whole gang under the bus because he displayed heart like Rocky Marciano? And just for context, when she found dude, he was fighting one of the native animals of Pandora who was trying to kill him. Nobody is gonna go down if a dog attacks without fighting back. That doesn't mean you have heart. It's called fight or flight. So what's the point of even acting like he's Rocky?
Rocky Marciano ain't shit.
The way the entire plot is moved is just all too convenient. After he gets in good with the natives, he begins to feed intel to the humans on the best methods to extract their vibranium. During that process, he then proceeds to fall in love with Neytiri and her people. He starts having all these conflicted feelings like a teenage boy going through puberty, but the humans get tired of waiting on him trying to cut a deal with them, so they opt to extract the vibranium by force like Ulysses' Claw. But lucky for the Na'vi, that's when Black Panther shows up with his native allies Chief Thunder from Killer Instinct, Connor from Assassin's Creed, Tommy from Prey, Native from My Hero Academia, and Forge from the X-Men to help defend what's obviously James Cameron's tone-deaf take on Native Americans. Now that last scene didn't happen, but the movie would have been a whole lot better if it did. Matter of fact, some African Americans have Native American in their bloodline, including myself. So to spice up the scene even further, let's go ahead and throw in Jon Stewart, Static Shock, Icon, Storm, Luke Cage, Blade, Falcon, Miles Morales, Misty Knight, Bishop, War Machine, Cyborg, and Batwing alongside the other heroes I named earlier to kick some colonizer ass.
Niggas is wildin'.
When the fight breaks out between both parties is when the movie really starts to drag. I wish I was making this up, but the final act is like an hour-long fight. The worst part is, it's not cool choreography like Shang-Chi, it's just basic fighting between machines and animals. I think back in 2009, people were so enamored with the CG that it's easy to look past how the CG was being used as underwhelming. It's more spectacle than substance. The one redeeming factor of this film is that the CG as a whole does stand the test of time. For a movie that dropped in 2009, I did think it still looked solid for the most part. I'd equate it to a modern day high budget sci-fi show like Halo. I can only imagine how blown away everyone was when it first dropped all those years ago. But that doesn't change the fact this movie is still mid AF. I mean, the writing is weak and the acting is one step above your high school theater major. A prime example being is the film's main villain, Colonel Miles. The guy who played him reminds me a lot of Chip Hazard from Toy Soldiers. The difference is, Toy Soldiers was a kid film, and I'm positive Chip Hazard was a satirical take on American bravado. Colonel Miles is a serious character that you can't help but laugh at because he's so cheesy. Honestly, I only watched this film to refresh my memory in preparation for Avatar 2. I had planned to produce a video for this channel on that movie, but I came out of viewing Avatar 1 not even wanting to see Way of the Water. So ultimately, I'm gonna leave it up to you, the viewers. Would you like to see an Avatar 2 video from me? Sound off in the comments below. In the meantime, I'm gonna go talk to Boma to see if I can get my hands on a Dragon Ball radar. I need to collect the Dragon Ball so I can ask Shinron if he'll give me my time back from watching Avatar, because fun fact kids, time is the only form of currency that we cannot get back. So make sure you spend your time wisely. I'm just saying.